Hi guys, nice to meet you. My name is Elad Fuchs. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alteria. Alteria is a threat intelligence company that helps crypto service providers prevent authorized push payment fraud, which is a fancy name for scams, working with a few leading service providers in the market. Maybe before diving into speaking about scams in general, I think that one of the most interesting places to understand scams are on-ramps. Do you know what is the average approval rate of on-ramps? Just for, it's around 50%. So if you're buying crypto, the probability of approving the transaction is 50%. And fraud rates are like 2.5, 2% in general, not just in crypto, meaning that most of the transactions that are being declined are obviously false declines. Okay. Speaking about adoption, people speak about UX, etc. Fraud is a huge problem that affects adoption, obviously. And the reason why we see so many fraud in the intersection between traditional finance and decentralized finance is because there is huge visibility gaps when it comes to those intersection or those gateways. Payment providers know a lot about the traditional financial rails. They know about the user. They exchange data about the user between different services, but they don't know the attribution of the other side, the on-chain side of the problem. And fraudsters understand the fact that the data is siloed and basically utilize those visibility gaps to execute lots of scams and eventually, in the end of the day, manifested in very low approval rates. And just to understand what is the difference between scams and fraud, or basically scams is a type of fraud. When you recently look at the statistics of fraud in general, it's outside of crypto, not specifically crypto, and if a decade ago chargeback fraud and account takeovers were the #1 type of fraud, what we see recently is that scams basically become the #1 type of fraud, and they're out of control. Authorized fraud or scams, as you probably most of you understand, those are cases in which the user is being manipulated basically to buy crypto, to send crypto into external account, a mute account. And what we see is that there is a shift, at least outside of crypto, but we believe we will see that as well in crypto, from stealing credentials to attacking the individual or the human element to execute social engineering scams. Now, most scams start on social media. And to be more specific, what we see is that Meta is the #1 social media platforms that generate scam globally. So Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, most scams start on those social media and then deceive users to different websites or chats, many stories, many techniques, but in the end of the day, they are the host of most of the social engineering scams that we see. And you're probably familiar, and Nikita mentioned, it could be investment scams, impersonation scams, recovery scams, and many, many more, as well as on dating apps. And in an ideal world, there would be a certain liability shift or a certain split in terms of the liability between the social media platforms and the service providers. Obviously, it's not a case. And there is no way to communicate between those two. We're working on a certain solution to do so. And the liability stays with the consumer. What we saw more than a decade ago, maybe 20 years ago, is that once the liability shifted from the consumer to the merchants, lots of companies launched to solve the problem of chargeback fraud. And there was lots of innovation and consumer protection standards that came after. What I expect to see and hope to see, we see it in fiat as RTP as well, is that service providers will start to take the liability and reimburse customers, and we hope to see it in crypto as well. Now, compared to hackers, scammers are, let's say, not so sophisticated people. You don't have to be sophisticated to execute scam. That's what makes it, from the one hand, something that it's easy to find. You don't need to look for scammers. You just open any social media platform, see scammers. The problem is to solve this problem at scale. And scammers typically need to understand the economics of the problem. So scammers looking for the cheapest way to transfer fund or to receive fund or to create mule accounts. Could be a Cash App account, but also could be a crypto account. And since those mule accounts in crypto are probably the cheapest, and we expect to see the cost of creating those mule accounts and consolidating or laundering the funds even lower in the future, it's very easy for those scammers to generate endless or one-time wallets to each one of those victims. It's very hard to trace, it's very hard to prevent, and that's the main reason why it's so problematic. The other side of the economics of the problem is that basically the scam, it's a low value, high volume problem, meaning that you can create, it's a lot of small transactions which no one is really incentivized, whether it's a law enforcement or service providers, to address the problem, each one of the scammers. You just cannot do it. It's a problem that you cannot solve directly. That's why it's so hard to address this problem in a reasonable economics and a solution that makes economical sense. Now, what we see and we expect to see in the near future is that if up until recently scams were high fidelity, or scammers had to choose between executing high fidelity, well-targeted campaign to spray and pray, and low-cost, scalable campaigns that will succeed statistically. Now with Gen AI, basically the economics shifted in a way that we have automation on steroids. So now I can create endless of campaigns with high-quality content, can translate it easily, I can mimic voice and video, and create lots of high quality content without compromising on the cost. And we believe that will create lots of scam, not just in crypto, but also in crypto in the upcoming years, which then will have to incentivize technological solutions. One of the problems that I believe, and it's related to one of the questions that people ask here in the MetaMask team, is that the question for technological innovation is what will be the incentive for a startup company to solve the problem? Okay? There are lots of problems in the world that worth solving, or we want them to be solved, but there is no incentive to anyone to solve them. And as I see, the only way that we will see massive or solutions that can address those scams will be, there will be a certain liability on the service providers and the merchant that will then drive new technological solutions. We are working and speaking with the law enforcement regarding that fact and trying to drive those incentives to be translated into solutions. That's it. Any questions?
Yeah, so, thank you. Nice. Yeah, so actually what you were talking about, the on-ramping part, was really interesting to me, because I feel like a lot of us are here like targeting like, getting rid of scams, like wallet drainers, this kind of stuff. But this is actually the first time I've heard somebody talk about like on-ramping. Have you seen solutions in that space, or like what are what are ways that companies currently solve like the problem of how do we get legitimate transactions and make sure they're not stolen when they're coming into crypto, or also the off-ramping portion too. I know there's like some stuff with like some exchanges will freeze accounts and some of those areas, but is it something that either you yourself do, or like do you know like people that are solving that area?
That is a good question. When you're speaking with on-ramps and payments in general that enable integrate crypto into their offering, what you see is that you have two types of solutions. You have identity fraud solutions, traditional identity fraud solutions, Forter, Riskified, etc., that basically try to answer the question whether the user or the user that's executing the transactions is the real user and it's not account takeover. The problem with social engineering scams is that they bypass all the KYCs. Okay, so in 90% of the cases, they bypass the KYC. And then you have the second layer of protection, which are the forensics tools or the blockchain analytics tools that are trying to address this problem down the risk waterfall, but for detection and not prevention, meaning that they can realize if you are now sending funds to a illicit address, or later on if the address was blocklist a few months later, but not for prevention. That's the part of the solutions that we providing to those players.
So I think I believe there's a court case in the UK right now referred to as Tulip or something that I've heard some folks talk about. The idea being that the centralized exchanges would take more accountability for theft. So basically, if my funds go to, I was going to say Binance. I don't have anything against Binance. If my funds went to Binance and then they were stolen, if they can't find the perpetrator, Binance would be forced to take accountability and repay me like traditional finance does. What do you think about that sort of solution? And from your experience in traditional finance, do you expect that centralized exchanges will have to go down that route?
Yeah, okay. So yes, in the UK is the first place that started to adopt the new regulation when it comes to authorized push payment fraud. And what it simply means is that when someone fell into scam, both the originator and the beneficiary financial institution need to reimburse the customer 50-50. It's like split the cost of the scam. Most of the neobanks today in the UK, like the leading neobanks, as well as the traditional banks in the UK, it kicks in 2024 recently, and they started to reimburse the customers. In crypto, it's still not the case, but I expect that since part of those transactions originated from a fiat account, so it's a fiat account, now withdrawal withdrawal activity to external wallets, we will see some of that liability shift also goes to the crypto transactions in the near future.
Any last question? Everybody want to go to lunch? So, cool. Thanks, everybody. We're coming back in 30 minutes with Christian's session. Awesome.